CD10. Carrie thought Tim was getting restive now that he'd told John what he'd noticed in Milner's accounts. Tim and I usually go to the pictures on Saturday night. We'll still have time if we leave now. We feel in a state of flux. John was shaking his head. We won't be able to think of anything else until our baby arrives. But thanks for letting me know what you found, Tim. We've had the phone put in too, Connie said, as they went through the hall. She scribbled the number on a scrap of paper. So she can let me know if things start while I'm at work. John smiled at his wife. I'll ring Leonard Groves up right away and tell him the news. He'll be delighted if you found a fault in those accounts. You know that last year they were thought to be a bit suspect. It'll be one in the eye for Milner, Connie said. I bet you'll be pleased about that, Carrie. At the time, I made myself forget about revenge, she smiled. But I won't be sorry if this lands him in the mire. I wonder why he didn't show all his expenses, John pondered. I can't see the point. But he'll have some reason, and it probably indicates fraud. Perhaps investigations will reveal Milner to be at the centre of a criminal empire. Tim grinned at him. As they left Connie's house, Carrie said, "Oh, it's been a very different Saturday afternoon, and we hardly have time to go into town for the last house at the Odeon." "I'm glad we went round to tell John," Tim said. "We could go to the Roxy. That's near where I live, and it'll save us going into town. I noticed that the Marx Brothers are on, but I've forgotten the name of the film. Do you like them?" "Yes, it'll be a good laugh. But will we be in time to see the whole show?" "Yes, with a bit of luck, if we go straight there. But we'll be starving when we come out as we've had no tea." "We'll buy some chocolate as we go in." "Yes, and afterwards you can come home with me and I'll make us something quick, like eggs on toast. We might have the house to ourselves. Mum's going to see Ethel Harrison, the widowed friend she used to work for. She's teaching her to do her own accounts. Ethel's asked her round for a meal." They thoroughly enjoyed the film, which was called A Night at the Opera. When they came out, Carrie's sides ached with laughing. Tim's mother came home as they were eating their scratch meal, and they giggled together as they told her about the film. Tim walked her home, and when Carrie let herself in, Prue was in the kitchen making a bedtime drink of cocoa. "Will you have some too?" She got out another cup without waiting for a reply. "How's Connie?" "Tired of waiting, wants it over. She always was impatient. Your father's feeling very sorry for himself too," she said. "He's sunk in gloom, and it's not like him. Go and cheer him up." Archie was sprawling in Maud's fireside chair, his legs half across the rug. He stared blankly at Carrie. She started to tell him how much she'd enjoyed the Marx Brothers film. "Don't like them. They're silly, not my sort of humour." "Dad, what is the matter with you? You used to be bouncing with life, game for anything. Happy." He sighed. "Oh, I'm a bit depressed. Marion's gone." "I'm sorry about Marion, but you were switched off long before that. At Connie's wedding you took charge of Prue's plumbing disaster, sorted things out. But now you don't seem to be interested in doing anything. You've been going down the drain for months." He looked at her reproachfully, and Carrie remembered that she'd been asked to cheer him up. "Sorry, Dad, but it's true. Before we went to the pictures, Tim and I went to see John. Once you'd confirmed that you did work for Milner, he wanted to tell John what he'd found in Milner's accounts." Archie jerked upright in his chair. "What? Why?" "John's his boss. He has to. John was delighted with the news and said he was going to ring Leonard Groves right away to let him know." Her father's eyes were no longer blank. He seemed gripped by a new shockwave. "Oh, my God. No! Don't tell anyone. You mustn't." Prue came in with a tray of cocoa and biscuits. "I'm taking mine up to bed," she said. "I've had more than enough of today. Archie, you go to bed as soon as you've had this, and I hope you'll feel better in the morning. Good night." Carrie waited until Aunt Prue closed the door. Dad, it's Tim's job to report things like that, and we're all keen to catch Gerard Milner out. We don't understand why he's hiding this. It doesn't make sense, but we mean to find out. No, you mustn't. Her father threw himself forward to grip her wrist. Nobody must know. He knocked the cup that Prue had placed on a low table beside him, and a wave of cocoa slopped into the saucer. Carrie ignored it. Dad, I thought you were on my side, angry with Milner for leading me on. We all thought you'd be pleased if we could catch him out in some criminal scheme. No. Perspiration was standing out on his forehead. To start an investigation into Milner's affairs is the worst possible thing. You must stop John doing that. Carrie was staring back at him nonplussed. Well, it's probably too late. John was going to ring Leonard Grove straight away. I don't understand what all this is about, Dad. He'd sunk back into the armchair. Without Marion, everything is going wrong. I feel I'm losing control. His whole attitude was telling Carrie that he thought she was stronger than he was. Come on, Dad. You've got to tell me what's been going on. He gazed into the dying fire, looking defeated. Milner has been fencing stolen jewellery in a big way. Marion and I have been helping him. Carrie's mouth fell open. She could feel herself shaking with shock. He wouldn't look at her now. Milner had to hide the expenses of fencing. He couldn't possibly show those in his business accounts. She could feel herself cringing with horror. You're saying you helped him? You've been involved with him? And if we prove he's engaged in criminal activity, will that also prove that you... Yes, I've been scared stiff for months that we would be caught. Oh, my goodness. You and Marion. Archie nodded. And now Tim and I have... Yes, and not just Milner. We've been helping Rod Reinhardt set up a big ring all over the northwest, Lancashire and Cheshire. Carrie gasped. Dad, the police! They'll be after me too. I don't know what to do. You've been helping criminals. I can't believe it. You've always seemed so honest, so upright. You don't know the half of it. I did a lot of bespoke work for Milner using stolen diamonds, valuable stones, and Marion has left and taken the finished goods with her, so she's given him his comeuppance. You mean she's stolen them from Milner? Yes, and I think she's also stolen much of the money we made for Rod. She's drained what was building up in the bank accounts. Stolen your money? Mostly it belonged to Rod. He bankrolled the scheme. But some would have been mine. Marion has done that. How much would it be? Archie shook his head. I don't know exactly. She kept all our accounts, and she seems to have burned the paperwork before she went. But I really liked her. I thought she'd be good for you. So did I. I loved her. I've been a fool. I let her talk me into doing things that I knew were wrong. She could convince me that black was white. What on earth will Prue say? I don't want the family to know. Dad, everybody is going to know. Tim was out to catch Gerard Milner. We all were. John will have started the ball rolling. The police will be called in and they're bound to investigate. We thought you were honest. It never occurred to me or Tim that you could be involved like this. Oh, my goodness, what have we done? Carrie, you've got to help me. What should I do now? I'm in a terrible mess. Although her father had freely admitted his guilt, she wanted to protect him from the law. Can't you go back to South Africa? You've been talking about it. Back to Joburg? Yes, as soon as possible. You said Marion had booked your passage. I don't know for certain, but I think she might have lied about doing that. Perhaps we can stop John telling Leonard Groves. But then I could get you and John in trouble with the police, and also with your firm, your careers. I mustn't involve you. Dad, you already have. Carrie drained her cup of cocoa, now gone cold. We need to think carefully about this. She reached for a biscuit. Drink your cocoa and we'll go to bed. We can't do anything now. It's after midnight. Carrie spent half the night tossing and turning, horrified that her father had admitted being engaged in fencing stolen jewellery. He had asked her for help, something he'd never done before, which just showed how low he felt. Without Marion, he couldn't cope here. He wanted to return to Joburg. He had a house there, and work that he said was legal and above board. Booking him a passage on the mailboat as soon as possible seemed the best plan. It would get him away from any investigation here. But wouldn't the police consider him a wanted man? Could they insist on his coming back from South Africa? Carrie groaned into her pillow. She'd made it worse by encouraging Tim and John to look into Gerard Milner's affairs. Soon they would all know that Dad was a criminal. Chapter 27. By the time she was dressing the next morning, Carrie's mind was on practical ways to help her father get out of the country. Prue was already down in the kitchen preparing to take Gladys to the early morning service at church. Carrie poured 2 cups of tea from the pot her aunt had made and took them up to Maud's room. Archie was awake, but just as gloomy. "What am I going to do?" he asked. She sat on the bed. "It's Sunday, so I don't know whether you'll be able to find out if you're booked on next Thursday's mailboat." He shook his head in despair. "I don't think Marion will have done that. She booked herself to... Then you need to do it yourself. I don't have to go to work today. So we'll go to that house you rented and pack all your belongings, empty it of everything that wasn't there when you took it over." "But that'll be a big job. We've been living there for over 15 months. "That's why it has to be done today. Tomorrow you can take the keys back to the estate agent and end your tenancy." Below them, the front door banged shut. Archie sat up with a jerk. "What's that?" "Only Prue on her way to church." She went to the window. "Can't you hear the bells?" Below her she could see Prue, tall and stringy, with Gladys, much shorter, and still not fully recovered from her misadventure in the bath. She felt a surge of sympathy for Gladys, who was finding it none too easy to walk. Prue was fond of her too, and was slowing her steps so Gladys could keep up. Carrie closed the window. "Get up now, Dad. I'm going to make us egg and bacon for breakfast." He was a long time coming down, but she could hear him walking about upstairs. When he did come, he said, "I can't ring the Union Council office. Prue doesn't have a phone." "We'll be going to Allerton as soon as we've had breakfast. You can ring from there." "Of course," he said miserably. "Poor Dad, you're not thinking straight. I need to talk to Tim. He might have a better idea." At least the car was parked outside, and Archie drove them to Allerton without wasting any more time. As soon as they arrived, Carrie rang Tim. "I have a problem," she said. "My father is telling me he and Marion have been helping Milner fence stolen jewellery." "What?" There was no mistaking the horror in Tim's voice. She repeated what she'd said. "Oh, my goodness. That means your father has broken the law. He's admitting this. Heavens, Carrie. Uncle Jeremy'll go ballistic. He'll be afraid that some whiff of criminality will attach itself to you and John, and because you're employees to the firm of Atherton and Groves." Carrie's heart was sinking. "I'm afraid it might. Uncle Jeremy sees it as imperative that his company remains squeaky clean. Nothing must tarnish its name, because it acts as a sort of policeman, pointing out to its clients where they could fall foul of the law." Dad's asking for my advice, Tim. What do you think is the best thing for him to do? Go straight to the police and tell them exactly how he's involved. I'm helping him pack up his house, and he's hoping to get back to South Africa before the trouble starts. He mustn't do that. It could make him a wanted man. Yes, I know. Would they be able to bring him back from South Africa to face charges? I haven't the slightest idea. In any case, you shouldn't get involved in this. You could be charged with helping a criminal escape the law. Well, I understand that, but if he won't go to the police and insists on leaving the country, tell him he's on his own. Do nothing to help him. Tim, he's my dad. He's asked for my help, as I've just asked for yours. I'm sorry. Clearly you don't want to help me, though I've done my best to help you in the past. Carrie, I'm sorry. So terribly sorry, but I can't involve myself in this. I too could be charged with helping a criminal. Uncle Jeremy would see that as, "To hell with you and your Uncle Jeremy," she said, and put the phone down. Tears were scalding her eyes. She'd expected sympathy from Tim, even if he couldn't help. She was glad her father was upstairs and not able to see her reduced to tears like this. She wiped her eyes. She was disappointed in Tim, but this had certainly shown her just how much Dad needed her support. She couldn't cut herself off from him, regardless of the cost. Carrie shivered. The house felt cold and had an air of being abandoned in a hurry. She was used to seeing it impeccably tidy, and it certainly wasn't that now. "Dad," she called, "where are you?" Archie came downstairs looking numb. "Why don't you get on the phone now and see if you can talk to the Union Castle office today?" She watched as he did so, but it seemed nobody was there to speak to him. "Try again later," she said. "It's still early to be at work on a Sunday. Let's make a start on packing." Where? He had no energy and looked as though he didn't care what happened. "We'll begin with your clothes. Let's go up to your bedroom." He led the way up to his room. Carrie opened the window and turned her attention to the wardrobe. "Oh, you're not short of clothes. How many suitcases do you have?" 3 here on top of the wardrobe. He pulled them down. "And a cabin trunk in the spare room." He was opening one of the suitcases on his bed when Carrie asked, "What's that thing that's still on top?" He had to stretch up to reach it, and as he edged it towards him, something else fell with it. "Oh, hell! I was supposed to get rid of these things, but I forgot." Carrie picked up a square jewellery case and opened it. "There's nothing inside. What's that other thing?" "I told you I made some bespoke jewellery for Milner. This belonged to the original necklace. If it was mounted on this thing, it could also be worn as a tiara." He tapped it. "Just base metal." "Let me see it," Carrie said. "And the necklace it goes with was stolen property?" "Yes, a lovely thing, beautifully made. A real shame to break it up. But Milner wanted it melted down and the stones recut to make them safe to sell on. Marion took them to Amsterdam to be done." "Great Scott, Dad! You went along with that?" Carrie felt her heart flutter. This had been a bigger operation than she'd realised. It was scary. "I had to. Marion and Rod thought it was the only way to make those stones safe to handle." "Then we've got to get rid of these things." Carrie was staring at them in horror. "You don't want to be caught with them in your possession. The police would see it as proof that you handled the diamonds." "I know." He opened the leather jewellery case. "The name of the original maker is on the satin lining inside. It can be tied to that particular necklace." She took it from him gingerly. It gave her the collywobbles to look at it. "Let's burn that straight away." She ran down to the sitting room grate to do it, but it was full of charred paper. "What's all this?" she asked. Archie had followed more slowly. "Before she left, Marion burned all the records she'd kept for Starbright, the company Rod set up to fence the jewellery." Carrie felt herself cringing. The more she knew about what had gone on, the worse it seemed. Maybe Tim had been right. She picked up the poker and raked through the brittle, burned paper, breaking it into tiny fragments. "I remember now," Archie said. "Milner gave me that case to burn when Marion was going to Amsterdam. I didn't bother lighting fires when she was away and forgot all about it. It's not easy to do it now. We'd both take things home and get rid of them there." Her eyes went round the room. "She hasn't burned everything, though. We must make sure we don't leave anything incriminating." Carrie picked up several handwritten sheets of blue paper and a matching envelope from an armchair. "What's this letter?" "It's from Marion. She left it for me. To tell me not to expect to see her again. Not ever. But I've already told you about that." Carrie held it out to him, but he backed away. "No, I don't want anything to do with it." "We can't leave it here." Carrie pushed the pages into the envelope and put it in her pocket. Why had Marion gone without saying goodbye to the family? She still wasn't sure Dad had told her everything. "Would you mind if I read it?" "If you like." "I'll do it later. Better get back upstairs to the packing now," she said. They worked together, filling the cabin trunk and the suitcases and taking them down to the car. Then Archie went round the house, with Carrie following, picking up odd items like books and bottles of wine and whiskey that he wanted to take. She couldn't stop thinking about Tim's reaction and how much it had hurt. In the room Marion had used, the bed was neatly made. Carrie opened the wardrobes and found she'd left a few dresses, a hat and a handbag. She bundled them up and took them too. She'd admired Marion's outfits. Perhaps these things would suit her or Connie. They stripped both beds, collected the towels from the bathroom, filled up the laundry bag and made out the list, ready to send to the laundry. Carrie was trying to work out how much it would cost as Archie carried it all down to the kitchen. "It doesn't matter," he told her. "It'll be deducted from the deposit I paid." "We ought to go soon," she said. "Prue wants us to be home by 12:30. She's making a roast dinner. Have another go at ringing Union Castle before we go." He went to the phone while Carrie made herself look round to see what else they needed to do. There were 101 things on her mind. Her father came back. "They don't work on Sundays," he said. "I didn't think they would." Carrie put on her coat. "That'll have to wait until tomorrow morning then, and we'll have to come back here to finish off this afternoon. Perhaps Prue will help." As the car pulled up outside her home, she said, "I'll help you carry your luggage up to Maud's bedroom. Prue will want it out of the way." When she opened the front door, she was met by delicious scents of dinner. Seconds later, Prue bounded out of the kitchen, her face sparkling with excitement. "John has been round," she said. "He took Connie into hospital early this morning. The baby's coming." Carrie thought of Connie for the first time that day and was filled with compassion. She'd be in the throes of labour now, and it seemed all wrong that Carrie wasn't with her to comfort her. She had to remind herself that Connie had moved on. She had John now. "Where is John now?" she asked. She needed to talk to him about Milner's audit, and Dad needed his support. "He went back to the hospital to wait for news." "Goodness me." Even her father had a smile. "This will make me a grandfather." "And me an aunt." "Archie, you could get back in that car and go down to the phone box to see if the baby's here yet," Prue told him. "It was 10:30 when John came." "Let's empty it first," said Carrie. "It's stuffed full of luggage. I had 100 things on my knee." They both helped Archie carry his luggage upstairs to get it out of the way. "I've put out clean linen for Connie's old bed," Prue said. "Let's get it made up now while we're upstairs. Maud is due back this evening, and we can't leave it for her to do, not when Archie's put her out of her own room." When Prue went downstairs to make the gravy, Carrie went to the bathroom to have a wash and get ready for lunch. She returned to comb her hair and remembered the blue envelope in her pocket. The letter inside was several pages long. Why would Marion be writing at such length when she'd been living with Dad until yesterday? Why had she upped and gone, apparently taking him by surprise? She took the letter out of the envelope and sat down on her bed to read it. Dear Archie, I'm writing this by way of an apology and to say goodbye. I'm not the person you supposed me to be, and neither is Rod. I'm afraid we have both deceived you. We wanted you to come to England with us because you have skills in designing and making jewellery that we don't possess, and we knew how useful that might be to us. From the start, Rod was afraid you'd refuse to come if you knew we were planning to set up a company to help thieves fence the property they'd stolen. We could see you were far too honest for that. But as you wanted to come over for Connie's wedding and spend some time with your daughters, we set out to persuade you. When you found things were not as you'd supposed, it took a lot of persuasion to keep you with us. I'm afraid you're not cut out to lead the sort of life we do. Anyway, you don't need to, as you have the ability to earn the money to enjoy a generous lifestyle without sinking to our criminal methods. I know you love me, and when I first met you, I wanted you to be the permanent man in my life. I found you very attractive and attentive, but you were too damned honest, and your conscience bothered you. I had to drive you to carry on with Rod's plan. I'm afraid I've turned you into a nervous wreck, and you didn't deserve that. I led you to believe I would return with you to South Africa and marry you. I can't do that. We're very different people, and in the long run, it would not work out. But I want you to know that in my own way, I did and still do love you. I know this is the last thing you're expecting, and it will come as an almighty shock. Please forgive me for all my wrongdoing. I couldn't find the courage to tell you face to face. Eddie Jurgens and I are going to new pastures where you won't find us. Don't even try. Forget us. Go back to Joburg. You have friends there, a house, and an honest means of earning a living. You fitted into that life better than we did. I hope you'll find happiness with someone else in the future. Love, from Marion. Carrie had a lump in her throat when she put the letter down. Poor Dad. Marion had taken them all in. At that moment, she heard him come home and shout in the hall that Connie had had a little girl. She felt a spurt of joy and instantly forgot the problems as she ran downstairs. Both are well. Dad was certainly excited now. His cheeks were as red as Prue's, and his eyes were shining. He seemed more alive than he had for ages. She weighs 7.5 pounds, and we can go in this afternoon to see them both. Did you speak to John? Carrie asked. No, I tried him at home, but there was no answer. So I rang the hospital. It was the ward sister who told me. He's probably with Connie now. Carrie was left to lift the roasting pan out of the oven. For once, Prue was too excited for household tasks. She asked Dad to carve the joint while she dished up the vegetables. He waved the carving knife about dangerously while he and Prue laughed together. They ate roast beef and Yorkshire pudding. But as Prue and Dad chatted on about the new baby, the contents of that letter were going round and round in Carrie's mind. As soon as the washing up had been done, they were off to the Oxford Street Maternity Hospital. What a good job Connie's had a baby before you go back to Joburg, Prue said, still in high spirits. Your granddaughter could have grown up before you saw her. From now on, I'll keep in touch more. You must come out and visit me. I've plenty of room in my house to put you up. I certainly will, Carrie assured him, but it won't be for a few years. There were already visitors in the ward when they arrived at the hospital, and it was buzzing with chatter. Officially, visiting was from 2 to 4 on Sundays. They walked up the ward together to find John sitting at Connie's bedside. He stood up to offer his seat to Prue, but she was more interested in the new baby sleeping in a metal cradle swinging on hooks at the foot of the bed. Carrie slid onto the chair. Connie, how are you? Was it awful? Yes, I'm shattered, but happy. Isn't she beautiful? I think she's going to have blonde curly hair like us. We can't decide whether to call her Amelia or Arabella, with Mary as a second name after John's mother. Carrie peered into the cot and thought the baby looked like most newborns, rather red and wrinkled. But she was her niece. "Connie's only allowed 2 visitors at a time," John said anxiously. I'd better go out so you can stay with her for a bit." "I'll come with you," Carrie said. "Let's leave Dad and Prue to make a fuss of her." Out in the stone-floored corridor, she brought him to a halt in front of a window looking out onto a brick wall a few feet away. "I need to talk to you." Connie's over the moon. A healthy little girl is exactly what she hoped for. "Did you ring Len Groves last night? What did he say about Milner's accounts?" "I haven't spoken to him yet. He was out when I rang last night, and my mind has been on Connie and the baby since then." "Of course," Carrie said. "Connie's tired out now. Oh, they don't call it labour for nothing. She had her first pains around 5 this morning." "John, Dad is in trouble. We need your help." "Of course. I'll ring Len this afternoon." "No, don't. Don't say anything to anybody until—" He stared at her. "I have to tell Len Groves. He expects me to tell him if we find anything out of the ordinary when we do an audit. Surely there's no desperate urgency for you to tell him. I can't put it off. It would be as much as my job's worth not to tell him. We can't think of signing off that audit as correct until we've had another close look at the accounts. Len will want to see them himself when he hears about this. Satisfy himself. John, I've found out a lot more about what Milner has been doing, and Dad is involved too. He's in it up to his neck." "Involved with Milner? In what way? Not in anything criminal?" "Yes." She tried to explain about the Starbright business. "Dad's name appears as a director and general manager on all their documents, and Marion has disappeared. I've been helping Dad pack so he can get out of the country before the police come looking for him." "Carrie, you mustn't help anybody to break the law. That would make you—" She didn't want to hear this for a second time. "It has reduced Dad to a nervous wreck. He hardly knows what he's doing. We've got to help him to do the right thing now. Is it too much to ask for your support?" "Of course not. What can I do?" Marion left him this letter. I want you to read it and tell me if, in your opinion, it could be considered proof of his innocence." John frowned and turned the letter over, but didn't read it. "Exactly what sort of work did Archie do for Milner?" "He melted down gold and platinum jewellery and reset diamonds into new necklaces of his own design, knowing the original pieces were stolen. He removed assay marks, that sort of thing." John was shocked. Clearly, then, he can't be innocent. As Prue came bustling up the corridor, Carrie took the letter from John's hand and pushed it back in her pocket. "Your turn now, Carrie," Prue said. "You've hardly seen the new addition to the family. I don't want to exclude you. I know how close you and Connie are." "Not as close as we were," Carrie mused with regret, and she had a lot more to say to John. "Thanks, Prue. Can we invite John round for supper tonight? He'll be on his own." "Of course. We'll eat about 7. Just cold beef and salad on Sundays. We're going to Archie's house from here to help him clear it, but Maud is expected home around 5. "Wow," said Prue when she opened the cupboards in Archie's kitchen. "There's enough here to feed a small army." Marion hadn't meant to go short. She was a lavish housekeeper, and probably very wasteful. "There's more in the fridge," Carrie said. "Clean it out, and we'll take everything worth having with us." She went upstairs to the office and read through every bit of paperwork that remained. There was still a lot of documents about the lease of the house, correspondence with Union Castle, and a police list of stolen property. Both she and Prue were sending Archie out to the car with load after load of anything they could use. When they started cleaning up, he was sent out to the bin with loads of rubbish. All the time she worked, Carrie was trying to decide whether the new evidence she'd unearthed proved that Milner had committed criminal acts, but that her father had not. She thought it did. When she was satisfied there was no longer any trace of their occupation of the house, Archie locked up and drove them home. Prue had left a note for Maud, and she had supper ready on the table for them. John arrived in time to help them carry the goods in from the car, and he and Maud were both in high spirits. Maud was full of the good time she'd had in Ireland and wanted to hear from John every last detail about the birth. Carrie had felt exhausted, but began to recover once she'd eaten. She was finding it difficult not to get sidetracked, but if she was to help Dad, she had to get on with it now. "We need a family conference," she told them round the supper table. "I'm sorry, Dad. We all want to help you, I'm sure, but your problem has come as a shock." "What's this all about?" Maud wanted to know. "Have I missed something?" Carrie was explaining what had happened and how her father was involved with Milner when the front doorbell rang. Prue was irritated. "Who can that be now?" Carrie was nearest the door and got up to see. Tim was on the doorstep. "I'm so sorry, Carrie. I had to come round to speak to you. I've been so worried since... Tim, it's not a good moment. We're having a family conference about it and we have a lot to decide. I feel terrible. I don't want you to think... I'm all right. No need for you to worry. But I want to help. You can't. Things have moved on. You're right to stay out of it. But, Tim, I haven't time for this right now. I have to keep my mind on what I need to do. I'll see you tomorrow." She was closing the door. "No, you won't. I'll be at Milner's. I'll come over to see you at lunchtime." "No, Tim, don't." The door clicked shut before she could stop it. Carrie sighed. That wasn't how she'd meant to treat him, but it was too late now. She returned to the dining room. John was saying, "The whole thing is going to be general knowledge very soon." Prue's lips were hard with condemnation. "Archie, you say Marion has fled the country and taken a lot of the money you've earned here. You know my opinion of her." "Stolen from Archie?" Maud's jaw had dropped. Carrie sat down and put her mind to the problem at hand. "Today has been a full day and I've hardly had time to think," she said. "I did tell you, Dad, that I thought the wisest thing for you was to get out of the country as soon as you could." "I'll go just as soon as I can," he burst out, "and then you won't have to worry." "We will," John said. "The police will be involved. It'll be in all the papers." "Archie," Prue said, "you must realise that this will reflect on the reputation of the whole family." "Yes," John agreed. "On Carrie's career with Atherton and Groves, not to mention mine." "What a load of nonsense," Maud said. "Archie is as honest as the day's long. His conscience troubles him if he takes more than his share of cake. You know it does." "Yes," Carrie said. "Hang on a minute. I'm going to fetch some things from my room that I think show the truth of that. I've been thinking of a better way for Dad to handle this." She was back in a few moments. "Dad, I found these documents in your office." She spread them out across the table. "They prove that the car was bought in your name, and you did the same when you rented the house." "I wanted to come over before the others," Archie said, "so I could be at Connie's wedding. Rod asked me to set things up." "Exactly." Carrie looked round at her family and took a deep breath. "Would you have given details from which you could be traced if you'd known you were going to be involved in fencing stolen goods?" "Of course he wouldn't," Maud said. "He thought he had nothing to hide." "They were using you from the start," Carrie went on. "This leather jewellery case and tiara stand. Where did he get them from?" "Milner. He asked me to get rid of them. The jewellery was stolen from a big house in Wales," Archie said. "I was with him when the police came to ask him to keep an eye out for it." Carrie said, "If you go to the police and tell them all that, it will involve Milner. It'll be a valuable lead for them into that theft. They'll certainly take your story seriously." "It'll involve Archie too," Prue pointed out. "It's proof that he's been handling stolen goods." Yes, but we also have this letter written by Marion saying goodbye to Dad. It gives the correct slant on what happened. No, Archie put his hand out to take it. I don't want that to... All right, Dad, it's embarrassing, I know. But what's a little embarrassment compared with being considered a criminal? I designed and made jewellery for Milner. By then, I knew the material I was using was stolen. But you were in love with Marion and she was promising you the world to do it. Didn't she keep persuading you to stay and do this work? Archie didn't answer. Dad, I think you should go to the police tomorrow and take these things as evidence. Tell them exactly what happened, that you were hoodwinked by Marion and Rod to design for them, that you thought it was all going to be above board. Not the letter. His head had sunk into his hands. That's private. I wish I hadn't let you read it. Dad, the letter is the most important part. Marion is saying goodbye to you, but she describes how she persuaded you to stay, and how worried you were about what you were doing. It was not her intention, but by setting things out as they really were, she clears your name. Or provides mitigating circumstances, John said grimly. Her father couldn't look at her. I've been longing to get away for months, and as long as the police don't start questioning Milner again, I'll be in the clear. Dad, I can't help wondering whether you're making yourself out to be more of a criminal than you are. And to run away will make you look guilty even if you aren't. He didn't answer. Carrie felt the family were all holding their breath. Do you really need to go on the run like a criminal? Rush off to Joburg without saying a word to the police when you have evidence that might help them solve a crime? Evidence they'll think is important. There was still no response. All right. Can the rest of the family know what is in the letter? They knew Marion and were taken in by her too. We all were. May I read it to them? Archie hesitated. I suppose so. Carrie unfolded the sheets of blue paper and read the letter aloud. Do you all see what I mean now? Dad, do you? I certainly do, Maud said. John nodded. So do I. Carrie picked up the letter again. Listen to the phrases Marion uses. She said, I'm not the person you suppose me to be, and neither is Rod. I'm afraid we've both deceived you. From the start, Rod was afraid you'd refuse to come if you knew we were planning to set up a company to help thieves fence the property they'd stolen. We could see that you were far too honest for that. But we were able to persuade you, as you wanted to come over for Connie's wedding. And finally, when you found things were not as you'd supposed, it took a lot of persuasion to keep you. I'm afraid you're not cut out to lead the sort of life we do. Your nerves couldn't stand it. You'd be a fool to turn yourself into a criminal when you have evidence to the contrary like that, said Prue. Do be sensible, Archie, and do what Carrie suggests. You really must, John agreed. Also, if you do go to the police, it will mean Milner's activities come under their scrutiny. You want him to get his comeuppance for misleading Carrie, don't you? I do, Archie admitted. Then I'll talk to Tim and Leonard Groves in the morning. Tell them you've been inadvertently caught up with Milner's criminal activities and intend to make a statement to the police to explain how it happened in order to clear your name. It'll certainly give the firm the green light to pull Milner's accounts apart and a reason to refuse to sign his audit as correct. Chapter 28. Carrie's head was still whirling when she got into bed. There were so many facts to consider and things to arrange, and she would have to go to work as well. The next morning they were all up early and ate breakfast with her. You should go down to the phone box at 9 o'clock and find out if you have a cabin booked for Thursday, Carrie reminded her father. Maud agreed to go with him to return the keys of the Allerton house to the estate agent and close the tenancy. I want to be with you when you talk to the police, Carrie told him. I'm going to ask for time off today, but if I'm not home by 12, ring me. Maud'll go with you if I can't. Carrie had finished her stint at the Grey Goat Brewery, and, feeling on edge, she caught her usual tram to the office. John had told her that instead of going to Milner's, he'd come in to tell Leonard Groves what Tim had noticed in the shop's accounts. "Shall I tell him that you're worried about your father's part in this?" he'd asked. "It'll save time, and he'll probably send for you to hear your side of the story. Then you can ask him for a few hours off to go with your dad to the police station." "Thank you," she said. "That would be a help." Now, ill at ease, she sat at her desk awaiting a summons. It was John who came, smiling and friendly. "Len'll see you now. He's sympathetic." Carrie had been trying to work out how much to tell Leonard Groves, but he took over. "Come and sit down, Caroline. John tells me, he's your brother-in-law, isn't he, that your father has had business connections with Milner." "Yes. Tim heard Dad say he was doing work for him, and he noticed that no payment for the work appears in Milner's accounts." "Very strange. And John is afraid Milner may have a fraudulent reason for not showing it." "Yes. He says he can see no reason not to." "It could be an accidental omission." "John says his accounts are set out with great precision. He doesn't think he'd forget that sort of thing. Dad is very upset at being mixed up in something that could be illegal, especially when he's about to return to South Africa." "He's leaving this week, I'm told." "Yes, on Thursday, and it's all a bit of a rush." "I think he's quite right about wanting to go to the police today to give them the facts. We all need this to be cleared up as soon as possible." "I understand you would like to go to the police station with him." "Dad's been doing too much. He's in the middle of packing up his home, and he's a bit confused. I want to make sure he tells them all the facts." "Yes, quite. He needs a helping hand. Well, I see that you haven't missed a day since you started, so I think you should certainly take the rest of the day off to settle this and help him with his packing." "When did you say he was leaving?" "He's hoping to catch the mailboat that sails on Thursday, so he'll be leaving on Wednesday morning to go down to Southampton." "Once he goes, you'll not see him again for a long time. I think you should take Monday and Tuesday off to help him and say your goodbyes. We'll see you back here on Wednesday morning. Come and let me know how you get on." "Thank you, Mr. Groves." Carrie was all smiles. "I'm very grateful." She hurried out to catch a tram home, feeling grateful to John, too, for setting that up. John walked rapidly to Milner's shop in a state of trepidation. In his experience, there had been very few occasions when the accounts audited by Atherton and Groves had not been signed off as true and fair. Only once had there been trouble with an account he was helping to audit, and since he'd been made team leader, this was the first time he'd had to deal with serious difficulties. He was having qualms about facing Milner and asking searching questions that could not avoid alerting him to the fact that his accounts were being viewed with suspicion. Milner was behind the counter when he went in. Feeling very tense, John headed towards him. "Could I have a word, sir, in your office?" "Of course." Milner led the way. Once the door had closed behind them, John sat down at the desk and opened the file he carried. "It has been noticed that you have no figure for temporary labour or contract work in your accounts. No expense at all for that sort of thing?" "No." Milner slid into his chair. "All my staff are employed on a permanent basis." He looked very much at ease. "In a trade like mine, I need to trust my staff. I like to get to know them." "Yes," John said. But I happen to know that Archie Courtney has done work for you, that he came here several times. I have some of the dates. He's my father-in-law, so I know the family well. I know that others worked for you too. Marion Collard, for one?" He knew that had poleaxed Milner. The colour was draining slowly from his face. He could not refute the facts. Carrie reached home as Dad and Prue were having a minor crisis. Maud had been shopping and had bought herrings to fry for lunch. Prue had given Archie the job of gutting them. The knife had slipped, and he'd cut his hand quite badly. "I don't know what's the matter with you," Prue was complaining. "You can't do anything without making a mess. Look, you're dripping blood over everything." Carrie turned the cold tap over the sink full on and held his hand under it. "That hurts," he said, trying to pull it away. "Don't be such a baby," Prue barked. "That cut could get infected and then it'll hurt more. There's a bottle of iodine in the bathroom cupboard. Slip up and get it, Maud. Iodine will hurt you more than water, too." "Don't be so hard on him," Maud said. "You can see he's upset. Better bring that first aid tin down while you're there." Carrie turned the jet of water onto the herrings and carried on gutting them, while Prue saturated the cut with iodine. Archie screamed. Carrie felt Maud push her away from the sink and towards the sitting room. "I'll see to the lunch," she said. "You look after your father." Carrie could see he was trembling, but knew he was trying to pull himself together. "Come on, Dad, let's sit down. How did he get on this morning?" "I did what you asked me to do," he said. "I've ended the tenancy and returned the key to the estate agent." "Good. And everything's all right for Thursday?" "No. I got through to Union Castle, but it's as I thought." His face was woebegone. "Marion did nothing, and there are no first-class cabins left on Thursday's mailboat. I was offered a berth in a shared cabin, but I don't know. Have you booked it?" "No." "Oh, dear. I don't know what to do." "Dad, if you want to go on Thursday, you better make your mind up." "Of course I want to go." His voice was irritable. "But sharing with some stranger? I couldn't do with someone who snores or coughs. I need peace, and I might dislike him." "Did you ask about the following week?" "They have no single cabins left then either, but they do have doubles. I suppose I could take one of those." "Then why don't you? It would be a headlong rush to get away this week." "Oh, I feel desperate to leave," he groaned, pulling a face. "The police might come." "It's your choice, Dad. A less than comfortable voyage or put it off for a week. If you put it off, you'd have time to get organised." He sighed. "Oh, you could be right. I'll put it off." "Then hadn't you better go down to the phone and book it?" "He can't think straight any more," Prue said when he'd gone. "What has that woman done to him?" When he returned 10 minutes later, he said, "I've booked it. A double cabin to myself on the Arundel Castle, sailing a week on Thursday." But he still looked down in the dumps, and in no way excited at the prospect. "If I was preparing to sail to Cape Town next week, I'd be absolutely thrilled," Carrie told him. "Oh, I really need to get away and put this mess behind me," he said. "All this talk of theft and the police. I'll be relieved when I do." Carrie shivered. She would be left to face any trouble that was coming on her own. She couldn't even rely on Tim. "You've still got a lot to do before you leave," she told him. "At least there's no desperate urgency to get it done now. But since I've been given this afternoon off, we might as well go to the police and get that sorted." Prue said, "Sit up, lunch is ready." She brought their plates to the table and slid a fried herring in front of each of them. "I don't like the idea of going to the police. It worries me," Archie said. "I've been trying to keep away from them for months. It feels a bit like putting my head into the lion's mouth." "Nonsense," Prue said. "Don't be such a coward. And come down to earth. You've put Marion on a pedestal, on a par with the angel Gabriel, but she's a dishonest crook, and she led you into that money-making racket. Now you're trying to take the blame for her criminal activities. My goodness, that woman certainly had her claws into you." He flinched. "You're right," he said, and seemed to shrink in misery. Carrie ate steadily. You and I are going to the police this afternoon. I want you to get your story in before they come looking for you. I hope it'll prevent too much stain attaching itself to your name, she said. Does it matter? I'll be gone a week on Thursday. I'm glad it isn't this Thursday. That would make it look suspicious, as though you're in a big rush to get away. Also, it'll give the police time to ask more questions should they need to. She saw him cringe at that. We're going to tell them the truth, the whole truth, and hide nothing. He looked beaten. Carrie could hardly believe the difference the last year had made in her father. Marion betrayed you, she said. You weren't expecting it, and it must have felt like a kick in the stomach. She understood only too well. Hadn't Gerard Milner done that to her? He was staring at her, his eyes full of woe, and she went on, But she did more than that. She's made you doubt your own intelligence, your own worth. She's shattered your confidence. I feel such a fool. He was grinding his teeth. I thought she meant what she said. I must have been blind. Not for one moment did I suspect she was deliberately taking me in. If it's any consolation, she took me in too. I was ready to welcome her as a stepmother. I thought she really liked me. Archie burst out. I asked her to marry me and she agreed. I thought I knew her. Carrie knew they'd been man and wife already in every other sense, and could see his anger, his hurt, and his fear of a future without Marion. But she didn't know how to comfort him. His distress robbed even Prue of words. Half an hour later, they set off to walk to the nearest police station. Carrie had walked past it many times, but had never looked at it closely. It was a very old building, and the front door always stood open to show a long, dark passage. She could see other doors opening off it, but they were all closed, and there was nobody about. Her father pulled her to a halt. Come on, she urged, though her heart was pounding. Smile, Dad. Try to look like the successful citizen you are. What am I going to say? We've been through that twice. She'd made him think about what he needed to say and schooled him in an opening sentence or two. They turned a corner at the end of the passage and found themselves in a reception area with two policemen sitting behind a high counter. One stood up. Good afternoon. How can I help you? He seemed quite friendly. Carrie held her breath and waited for her father to speak. His voice was scarcely above a whisper, but he gave his name and began, I design and make jewellery for other jewellers to sell, and I find myself in an awkward position. I'd like to talk to an officer to make my part clear, set the record straight, so to speak. You want to make a statement? The officer hesitated. May I ask what it's about, sir? While I was working, I began to suspect that the materials I was using were stolen, that I was handling stolen property. Oh! The policeman straightened up and gave Archie closer attention. Carrie said, My father has been in this country for about 16 months, but he's lived and worked in Johannesburg for many years. He's booked to return there a week on Thursday. He couldn't just... I felt I should come here first, Archie put in. Carrie opened her bag and took out the tiara stand and the jewellery case, together with the other things she'd collected as evidence. Immediately the policeman's attitude changed, and one of them said, Would you take a seat, please? I'll get an officer to come and talk to you. Carrie knew this wasn't the time to relax, but in her opinion, Dad had at least put his problem over truthfully and honestly. They were taken by two detectives to a quiet room, and Archie was questioned minutely about what jewellery he'd made and for whom. The detectives asked for and were given dates and names and addresses. One man took notes. Archie pointed to the relevant items on the stolen property list and pushed the tiara stand and its case across the table. He hesitated over Marion's letter. This is very personal, he said, but my daughter insists it's vital that I let you read it. He pushed that across the table too. It supports what he's telling you, Carrie said. It shows that Marion and Rod were in charge of the operation and considered him to be an innocent assistant. After studying the letter, the officer asked, "The lady who wrote this says she's going away. Do you have any idea where she went?" Slowly, Archie shook his head. He'd already made it clear to Carrie that he wouldn't say anything that might land Marion in trouble. "And are you aware of anyone else who worked with this couple?" Carrie held her breath. She'd heard about Bill Dainty and knew Archie felt sorry for him. He shook his head again. It seemed he couldn't actually say no. That would count as a lie, while a headshake was vague and possibly need not. They were kept in the police station for more than 2 hours because the notes of their interview had to be typed up and signed by Archie. The detectives photographed the letter and also made typed copies. Carrie gathered that her father had given the police evidence and proof that would solve an outstanding case for them. And though they didn't acknowledge that, they certainly appeared pleased and grateful. "Should we have any further questions, may we come round to your address and see you?" "Yes, of course," he said, "but I shall be leaving to travel to Southampton a week on Wednesday." "On his way to Johannesburg," Carrie said, glad that Dad was able to allow them time to look into the matter before he went. She was also glad that although she had taken no revenge against Milner and had put that hurt out of her mind, he was now heading for trouble, and it was of his own making. It gave her satisfaction that she'd helped to bring that about. On the way home, their step was lighter and quicker. "Oh, am I glad that's over," Archie said. "It went well, but I was afraid it might all go wrong." "You took some persuading to do it." "You were clever to see the advantages. I feel better about the whole thing now. It's a load off my conscience. I think of Joburg as my home. I can go back now and be at peace. I wish I could take you with me, if only for a holiday. I'd love to come, but that'll have to wait until I'm qualified. I'm not allowed enough time off as holiday to cover the sea trip in both directions. A pity. I could do with some company." They had reached the front gate when Carrie said, "You want company? Why don't you ask Maud to go with you? She'd probably jump at the chance." He gave her a quick hug. "You're right. That would be just the thing." They were both rejoicing as she opened the front door. End of CD 10. CD 11. Prue and Maud were drinking tea in front of the fire, and the scent of herrings still hung faintly in the air. Archie blurted out his invitation without a moment's thought. Maud's face showed incredulity and then delight. "You mean that?" "Of course I do. I want you to come. You're good company, and the last thing I want is to be on my own. But you'll have to be ready to leave here a week on Wednesday." Prue poured herself another cup of tea. "He needs you to look after him, Maud." "But don't you have to book?" Maud was excited. "Will they have a berth for me at such short notice?" "If they haven't, I've got sole occupancy of a double cabin and you can bunk in with me. I'll go down to the phone box now and see." "Oh," said Maud, "I don't mind in the slightest. I'd sleep in the hold to get to South Africa. How long can I stay?" Archie laughed. "We'll have to see how we get on. Let's call it semi-permanent. Certainly a few months." "Marvellous," said Maud. "Oh, I'm going upstairs to start packing, though I have only one evening dress and nothing much for the beach." "Don't worry," Archie said. "You can buy all that out there." "Come and help me decide what to take, Carrie. I've practically nothing for warm weather." They went upstairs together, and Carrie agreed her wardrobe was mostly pullovers and warm cardigans. Dad says you'll need those too. It can get chilly during their winter months, though nothing like it does here. She unpacked all the clothes that had once been Marion's to show her. This is the sort of stuff you'll need, she said. Oh, Marion always looked so smart. Maud stood in front of the mirror, holding dress after dress in front of her. Sadly, most of them won't fit me. I'm too fat. I ought to slim down. But she took a beach wrap and a couple of sun hats. These dresses would fit you or Connie. Archie returned from the phone box to say, I've booked you a double cabin to yourself, Maud. It's all they had left. Luxury, she breathed. Thank you, Archie. I can't believe this is happening to me. Chapter 29. Since her father wasn't leaving for another week, Carrie felt she ought to return to work on Tuesday morning. She felt refreshed now his affairs were under control. She went straight to Leonard Groves' office to tell him what had taken place. I wasn't expecting you until tomorrow, he said, and she explained about Archie's booking. My father made a statement to the police, and they have no objections to his leaving the country, she told him. Once we knew his problem was sorted and that he'd be staying for another week, everybody relaxed and there was no need to rush. I felt I'd be taking time off under false pretences. Indeed. Well, we have refused to sign off Milner's audit, and I understand the police are investigating. I'm pleased you've settled this matter, and I must congratulate you on the way you handled it. It was quite a tricky situation. Carrie was rising to her feet when he added, My regards to your father. Would you like to take time off on Wednesday morning to say goodbye and see him off? Thank you, I would. As she walked across the floor of the main office to her desk, she could see many of the staff glancing up at her and knew they'd all discussed her problem. It didn't matter. Everything had worked out well for Dad. She'd set out to help him and she'd managed it. But in doing that, she and Tim had clashed, and she felt incredibly sad about that. Tim's desk was in front of hers, and usually he swung his chair round to face her. But today he got up and came closer. She understood this was a difficult moment for him too. Are you all right? Fine, she said. Everything has gone well, and I hope will sort itself out satisfactorily. I'm glad. But you were very unkind to me on Sunday night when I came round to apologise for my behaviour. That's because you weren't very kind to me when I asked for your help. You don't understand my difficulties. Oh, but I do. I was struggling with difficulties of my own at that time, Tim. You slammed the door on me. You told me you wouldn't help. You could have listened and been sympathetic, especially as I bent over backwards when you've had problems. Oh, my goodness, Carrie. Let's forget it. He sat down and bent over his work. She felt terrible. She'd made things worse. Before the afternoon was over, Bill Brown came to put some documents on her desk for her to read and told her she'd be one of a team drawing up the accounts for a printing firm in Ormskirk, and they were all to meet on Exchange Station at 9 tomorrow morning so they could travel together. Tim was not to be one of the team, so that meant they wouldn't see each other for a few days. She stared at his hunched back, wondering if he'd say something. When the time came to go home, he disappeared without a word. Perhaps it would be just as well if they spent a few days apart. That evening, Prue looked up from her lamb chop and said, What about your car, Archie? Shouldn't you be doing something about it? I haven't forgotten it, he said. You're leaving it a bit late to try and sell it. Are you taking it with you? No, I did ask, but it would cost a lot to ship it out to Joburg, and I already have a good car there. Has it all been paid for? Prue wanted to know. Or did you get it on HP? It's all paid for. No need to worry about that. What a pity Carrie can't drive. Carrie had been about to say she'd love to learn, but Maud said, John can, and Bob. You'd better give it to one of them. They'd both appreciate it. Bob, Prue decided. John'll soon be able to afford one himself. I have been thinking about it, Archie said. I'd like to give it to you, Carrie. You're the one who's tried hardest to help me. You've bent over backwards on my behalf. Would you like it? Well, anyway, if you don't want to drive it, you can always sell it. You're not going away, so you'll have plenty of time. Carrie was immensely cheered. I'd love to learn to drive it, she said. That would be absolutely marvellous. Thank you, Dad. Why don't we ask Bob if he'll teach you? For the last couple of years, new drivers have had to sit a test and get a licence, but he'll know all about that. We might see him this afternoon if he comes to the hospital to visit Connie and the baby. We can tell him he can keep it at his place and use it until you get your licence. That'll encourage him to teach you. Carrie breathed a sigh of satisfaction. Oh, that would be bliss, Dad. Absolute bliss. Carrie found that travelling to Ormskirk meant a longer than usual working day. John was leading the team, and as the maternity hospital in Oxford Street allowed half an hour visiting for new fathers every evening, John usually went straight to see Connie before going home. It meant Carrie was kept up to date with news of her sister and niece, but she was longing to start learning to drive. When she arrived home on Wednesday evening, she found the family had delayed eating until she got back. Maud and her father were in high spirits and talking 20 to the dozen about a plan to drive up to Preston to say goodbye to George. I haven't forgotten about asking Bob to teach you to drive, her father said. It's difficult to know what he's doing because he works shifts and he doesn't have a phone, so I went round to see him. I just caught him before he shot off to work. He's on 2 to 10s this week, so no chance yet. It's his day off on Saturday, and I said I'd take you round to see him in the afternoon. I'm glad you fixed that. Oh, Saturday afternoon, then. It's not that long off, Prue said. By Jove, you're keen. I could take you out for a bit in the evenings to start you off. Do you want to come now? It'll be light for another couple of hours. Carrie was enthusiastic, even though she was tired. Yes, please. He drove her to a bit of wasteland, a place of rough grass and deeply rutted, hard-packed earth that gave a bumpy ride. Carrie found driving more difficult than she'd been led to believe and was disheartened. Oh, I'm afraid I don't have much aptitude for it, she said. It takes practice, Carrie, not brain power. You'll do it. Of course I will. She really fancied driving round in her own car and was determined to do it. On Thursday evening, her father took her out again, but the result was much the same. We should get up early and come here before you go to work, he told her. You'll be fresh then and find it easier. Carrie set her alarm clock, and they tried it the next morning. She found she could concentrate better, but they lost track of the time. Archie had to drive her home to collect her handbag and the sandwiches Prue had cut for her lunch, and then run her to the station to join the team so she wouldn't be late. She hadn't put her hair up in its customary French pleat and raced along the platform with a head of wild curls and a pocket full of hairpins. She caught the train by the skin of her teeth, sat down panting, and noticed that the eyes of her 3 colleagues immediately fastened on her hair. Overslept this morning, did we? Robbie Wilson asked. There was disapproval on Bill Brown's face. Carrie felt a mess. Oh, I didn't oversleep, she said. I've been up since 5:30. My father took me out for a driving lesson and we misjudged the time. He's going to give me his car. Learning to drive, Robbie said. By Jove, I wish somebody would do that for me. There was admiration and envy in her colleagues' eyes now. It was 11 o'clock before she found time to go to the cloakroom and put her hair up. Fortunately, she was used to doing it now, and it didn't take her long. They worked hard all day, and by the end of the afternoon, they'd about finished the job. Bill Brown told them to take Saturday morning off as recompense for the time they'd spent travelling. Carrie was delighted. That meant she'd have the whole weekend off. But when she got home that evening, she felt shattered. I think we'd better leave it to Bob, her father said. You really don't have the time and energy to learn to drive as well as going to work. There is a limit to what any of us can fit into one day. I know, but thanks, Dad, for helping me do this. Kerry, you've done so much for me. It's the very least I can do. He smiled down at her, and she felt that the bond between them had tightened over the last week or two. She was going to miss him, and would be sorry to say goodbye. She was just waking up on Saturday morning when Prue brought her a cup of tea. "You have a lie-in this morning," she said. "You deserve it." When she did get up, she found that Prue had made a Victoria sandwich cake and a pork pie for John. "Shall I take them round to him?" she asked. She liked Connie's new home. It was exactly what she would have chosen for herself, and it still smelled of fresh paint. John was grateful. "Thank Prue for me," he said. "I've got my parents coming to stay for a few days to help Connie when she comes out, but they won't be here until next weekend." He talked all the time about his new daughter and took Carrie up to the nursery where she admired all the recent additions to the baby's layette. The full-size cot had been made up ready, but there was also a cradle with pretty muslin frills that they intended to use while the baby was tiny. She helped him put sheets and blankets on the new bed in the spare room. His parents would be the first people to use it. Then she dusted round and tried to make the room look as welcoming as possible. She felt low as she walked home. Everything was going right for other members of her family. Connie was in seventh heaven with her new house, a new baby, and a loving husband. The same could be said for Maud, who called her trip to South Africa the adventure of a lifetime, while Dad was relieved that he'd heard no more from the police and that it all seemed to be working out as they'd hoped. He was very much looking forward to going back to Joburg. But Carrie was not happy. She was disappointed with Tim. Since that stormy trip on the ferry, she hadn't been able to get him out of her mind. Every time they parted after a trip to the pictures, she hoped he'd kiss her. She would have liked him to show a little more affection for her. But he kept his hands in his pockets, as though he didn't want to touch her. Several times she'd been on the verge of telling him she loved him. At the very least, she'd counted him a good friend, and found it hard to believe that he'd refused to help her. It seemed she thought more of him than he did of her. And now there was this rift widening between them, and it looked as though their friendship was about to peter out. Chapter 30. Over lunch on Saturday, Dad had been holding forth about how pleased he was that he'd heard no more from the police. "It must mean that they're satisfied with what you told them," Carrie said. Afterwards he was getting ready to drive her over to see Uncle Bob when the front doorbell rang. When Carrie answered it, she found two men on the doorstep flashing identity permits at her. They introduced themselves as detectives and said, "Does Mr. Archibald Courtney live here? He made a statement in the station last week, and we'd like to ask him a few more questions." "Yes," she said, afraid that some new problem had arisen. "Come in, and I'll get him." As she showed them into the front room, her father came clattering down the stairs. "There's a couple of detectives here wanting to talk to you," she said softly. She would have followed him into the front room, but the senior detective said to her, "Do you mind if we speak to your father on his own?" He closed the door firmly, shutting her out, so she went to the kitchen to help Maud wash up, hoping Dad would be all right. "What do they want?" Maud was anxious too. "Oh, I hope they aren't going to stop us leaving." Carrie shivered, shook her head, and continued to help with the chores. The interview seemed to go on for a long time, and she was anxious to see Uncle Bob. She was ironing tablecloths for Prue when she heard the detectives being shown out. All three of them went into the hall. "Is everything all right?" Carrie could see it was. Her father was smiling and looked relieved. What did they want? "Those are the detectives working on Milner's case. They've been to see him, and he doesn't seem to have told them about Marion. They wanted to talk through what we told them on Monday and pressed for the names of others involved." You're daft to protect that woman, Prue said. You mix with all the wrong people. But we're still sailing on Thursday, Maud wanted to know. Yes, of course. Come on, Carrie. Let's go and see Bob. Carrie was relieved. It looked as though everything might work out as they'd planned, after all. Bob and Dilys were expecting them and wanted to hear the latest news of Connie's baby. Afterwards, Bob said, I'll be more than happy to teach you to drive, Carrie, especially as you've offered me use of the car until you get your licence. Carrie's clever. It won't take her long, Archie told him. I'm not so sure about that, she said. Dad has been trying to teach me, but I don't seem to be getting the hang of it. It took me a while, Bob laughed. Be patient, it'll come. Archie told him about the rutted tracks on the wasteland. Oh, I know a better place than that, Bob said. How about having your first lesson now? Archie came too, because Dilys wanted to go out to do the weekend shop. Bob drove them to a building site where the roads were already in and the buildings pegged out, but construction hadn't begun. There was nobody about. Carrie thought her uncle was very patient with her and that she got on a little better. When do you want your next lesson? Bob asked. I'm working a late shift tomorrow, so I could come over in the morning. Carrie agreed. She had to take every chance when they were both free. Bob was as good as his word and arrived shortly after breakfast. After an hour going round the building site, he said, You're improving. You're doing all right. He drove her home and popped in to have a word with the family. I'll come round on Tuesday evening to say goodbye, he told Maud. I'll give you the keys then, Archie said, and you can take the car. Maud and I'll be catching the 11 o'clock train down to London the next morning. Excellent. I'll come on the tram and bring Dilys. She's looking forward to us having a car. She's been trying to persuade me to buy one, though I'm afraid it might not be as posh as yours. I'll take good care of it until Carrie can drive. Connie and baby Amelia were coming out of hospital that afternoon. But as John's parents were staying with them, Carrie felt she couldn't intrude. Prue had invited some of their neighbours round that afternoon to say goodbye to Maud and Archie, and she was kept busy handing round cakes and cups of tea. Carrie waited anxiously for the tram to take her to work on Monday. She didn't know whether Tim would be on it. She hadn't seen him for ages, and the rift between them seemed wider than ever because they'd parted on bad terms. If he was on the tram and he'd kept her a seat, she would join him and hope they could get back to normal. But she dreaded seeing him on an outside seat, hiding behind a morning paper. They had not gone out on the last 2 Saturday nights. She'd really missed seeing him and was afraid he meant the present standoff to be permanent. With Connie engrossed in her baby and Dad and Maud leaving, she felt she was being deserted. When the tram came, it was full. She could see Tim standing in a crush of passengers well away from the entrance. She had to stand too, but hesitated about pushing her way through to him. More passengers got on, but eventually he made his way through them and came to touch her arm. Carrie? He'd made the first move. She relaxed her clenched hands. Hello, Tim. Haven't seen much of you recently? No, and I'm standing in for Danny Devereux at a chain of men's outfitters, so we won't see each other today either, he said. His voice sounded strained. Devereux is off sick. I understand everybody's congratulating you, Carrie said. What? On finding the problem in Milner's accounts. The police are investigating him. But you know that? Yes. How's your father? Everything turned out well for him, she said. Did your cousin Len tell you? No, I haven't seen him. In the crush, he had to stand very close to her, and he seemed to be speaking into her hair. No blame was attached to Dad after all. He's sailing to Cape Town on Thursday and taking my aunt with him for a holiday. She was trying to be bright and breezy, as friendly as she could, but he continued to look stony. They had reached the centre of the city, and the shop workers were getting off. Tim stepped further away from her as soon as there was room. "I'll be getting off one stop before you." "When will you be back in the office?" "Tomorrow, I expect. Perhaps late this afternoon." The tram came to a halt, and the passengers surged off. "See you." He was gone, and the tram clanked on. Carrie was left feeling even more unsettled. It was easier to cope with Dad's problems than her own. During the morning, she heard welcome news. Tomorrow, she and Tim would be part of a team going to a jam factory. That meant she'd see more of him, and they'd have time to settle things. She would try and put him out of her mind until then. Next morning, when the tram came, she could see that Tim had a seat. He stood up to let her sit near the window, but he still looked withdrawn and unhappy. "I'm sorry," he said. "We've been at odds since that Sunday. We need to talk. There's a lot I want to tell you." Carrie thought it sounded as though things might be all right after all. She told him about Connie's baby girl and John being over the moon. She'd already told the rest of the office, who'd been full of questions and goodwill for John. When they reached their stop, Tim walked stiffly beside her and said little. "You do know we're both to go to Johnson's jam factory today?" "Yes, I was told. Who else is in the team?" "Robbie Wilson, and we're to be led by Douglas Davis. I've not worked with him before. What's he like?" "He's all right." No sooner were they in the office than the team was summoned to Len Groves's office, where he outlined basic details of the Johnson business. Tim sat beside Carrie and looked withdrawn. Mr. Davis had a car and drove them all to the factory, where they set about the work. As usually happened, Mr. Davis said to Carrie, "You and Tim can start by physically checking the empty jars and ingredients waiting to be used in the stockroom. When you've done that, you can check the jars of conserve ready to leave the factory. Here's the paperwork." "Right," Carrie said. "The stockroom is on the top floor." A girl was waiting to take them up. It was a tightly packed and airless place, but they were alone at last. "Shall we start at the far end with the jars?" Tim said. "There's stacks and stacks of them, and they're all different sizes." "There was something you wanted to tell me," Carrie prompted. "No time now. We've got to get on with this." Tim spoke to her when he had to about what they were doing, but never before had things been so stiff between them. Carrie was filled with foreboding. A hooter sounded through the factory, signalling the lunch hour. "Let's get out of here," he said. "It's no place to eat." They went downstairs to the table the team had been allotted in the main office. Many of the factory staff were getting to their feet and going out. Douglas Davis said, "Robbie and I are on our way out to find a cafe." Carrie took out her sandwiches and watched Tim do the same. She pulled her chair closer to his and spoke in a whisper, as there were other staff eating sandwiches at their desks not far away. "You said you had something to tell me? That we must talk?" He was staring at his sandwich. "Yes." He paused. "It's difficult." He sighed heavily. "I'm sorry I upset you. I'm sorry about your father." "No need to feel sorry for him. He's delighted his difficulties are over and he's going home." He was also grateful for the help she'd given him, which was more than could be said of Tim. "I need to tell you about my father." "Yours? You don't speak of him much." "No, he died when I was 4, so I don't really remember him, but he caused a split in the family and terrible trouble for my mother." "This is sort of family history." His eyes had been avoiding her, but he looked up now. "Yes." Carrie chewed on her roast beef sandwich and wondered why this was important to him now. "Go on," she said. "My father was a gambler. Not just a man who had an occasional flutter, but a habitual and obsessive gambler who was certain his next bet would be a big winner. He was addicted to it in the way some people are to drink, but he could hide it. My mother said she didn't realize the extent of his problem. though he'd told her he gambled. She understood that to mean he had a bet on races like the Grand National or the Derby. She thought he was saving money, but he gambled away every penny he earned. Dad was a chartered accountant, and to start with, Mum's family approved of him. Once they were married, they offered him a job in the business, and within a year or two he was made a director. Carrie was appalled. She could guess now where this was leading and why he was telling her. When money was found to be missing from some of the business accounts, it all came to light. Dad had been fleecing the business to back what he thought were sure winners. Needless to say, they mostly lost, and what little he did win was immediately put on another horse. Tim sighed gustily again. Mum told me there was a humdinger of a family row about it. Were the police called in? Carrie could see why the trouble with her father had had such an effect on him. No, everything was kept quiet, completely under wraps. Uncle Jeremy put the money back into the accounts, but after that he wanted no more to do with us. Since then, he's been pathologically scared that a stain on the company name would hurt the business. Oh, Tim, I am sorry. She was full of sympathy for him now. What happened to your father? He couldn't forgive himself for what he'd done to Mum and me. He committed suicide the following year. Oh, my goodness, Tim, that's dreadful. Your mother must have had a terrible life. Well, you too, of course. We've had our problems, he sighed again. We had nothing but the roof over our heads. That came to Dad from his family. But he'd also borrowed money against it. Once my father was dead, Uncle Jeremy relented. He paid off the debt against the house and offered to help train me, and thought that was enough. He neglected Mum until you brought our penniless state to his attention. She saw a fleeting smile. You can see why we didn't want to ask for more. Really, the family have been very generous to us. I can. I didn't know, Tim. I see now why you refused to help my dad. Any hint of criminality would be bound to scare you off. He was shaking his head. This is not something I can talk about. I've never told anybody else. But I had to put things straight with you. I'm glad you have. She could feel tears of sympathy prickling her eyes. Now we can get back together. I couldn't let a spat like that come between us. I hated being shut out of your life. Her heart seemed to turn over. Carrie, I want you to know I'd go to the ends of the earth for you. She beamed at him and would have said more if their colleagues had not come back from lunch at that moment. She was happier than she'd been for a long time. Things were coming right for her at last. Tim put his hand on her arm. Stay in town with me for an hour or so after work, and let's have a drink somewhere. We have so much to talk about. I'd love to, but I can't, not tonight. There's too much going on at home. Today is Dad's last day. He and Aunt Maud are leaving tomorrow morning. Prue has planned a big farewell dinner. Chapter 31. That afternoon, Carrie and Tim spent another busy session in the stockroom. But now that they'd started talking freely with each other, it was as though they'd opened the floodgates and couldn't stop. All they wanted to do was talk about their personal affairs. She could see affection shining out of his eyes. She thought about what he'd said when they'd been downstairs and was racked with sympathy all over again. Why didn't we discuss these things when we had plenty of time? We really have been taking each other for granted all these months, haven't we? I've never taken you for granted, he said, his brown eyes searching into hers. I've really appreciated your friendship. You've been marvellous to me, both at work and helping me and Mum at home. She thinks you're lovely too. I felt a real heel refusing to help you. I understand why you did that now, she said. You didn't intend to push me away. Carrie, That's the last thing I'd ever want to do. She could see a new intensity in his manner, and her heart missed a beat. Although I've been telling you that you're the best friend I've ever had, I've always wanted more from you. More. Her heart was bouncing. Of course, more. He reached for her hand. Carrie, I'm in love with you. Have been for ages, since the very beginning. Head over heels. I can't get enough of you. He took her in his arms, and his lips came down on hers. Carrie felt as though she was melting. The sudden sound of footsteps outside, followed by voices, made them draw apart. I love you too, she whispered. Why didn't you kiss me before? I hoped you might on our Saturday nights out. Honestly? Well, I didn't dare. Not after you went out of your way to say we were to be just friends. Uncle Jeremy told me he'd asked you if I was your boyfriend, and you were vehement that we were colleagues and friends and nothing more. Oh, dear. And Robbie said you slapped his face and put him in the doghouse for good because he tried to kiss you. Carrie smiled. On our first date, he did nothing but grope me, and he wouldn't stop when I asked him to. It put me right off him. Besides, he wasn't my type. Tim laughed. I've been struggling to keep my hands in my pockets for months. I didn't want the same thing to happen to me. But you're not Robbie. You're completely different. If I couldn't have you as my lover, I wasn't going to risk losing your friendship. That made Carrie catch her breath. He was saying he wanted her as his lover. His arms came round her again, and she put her head on his shoulder. Oh, Tim, what blind fools we've been. Yes, he whispered. I've loved you all these months, and I've been trying to decide what I could do about it. What I really want is for us to be married. I've imagined proposing to you in all sorts of romantic places, with a ring ready to slide onto your finger. And here I am, telling you this in a stuffy jam factory stockroom. Carrie could hardly get the words out. But is this a proposal? It's what I've wanted for a long time. But it isn't practical, is it? I'm not earning a proper wage, and I've agreed not to marry before I'm qualified, which is still 2.5 years off. I agreed to the same terms, Carrie said, but now I wish I hadn't. But we could be engaged, he murmured. There are no rules about that. I have no ring to offer you, though, and no prospect of getting one for years. That doesn't matter. In fact, all my prospects are in the distant future. Knowing how we feel and having an understanding is what matters. Yes, it is. His arms tightened round her and stayed there until the factory hooter sounded again to mark the end of the working day. They shot down to the office to lock their documents and files away for the night. On the tram going home that evening, Tim held her hand, and his eyes wouldn't leave her face. She could see he was excited and brimming with pleasure. I want to tell everybody that I love you, and that we have an understanding. My mother will be pleased. Are you going to tell your family? I'd like to tell Dad before he goes. I will if I get half a chance, but the spotlight is going to be on him and Maud. She gave a little laugh. Aunt Prue has assumed we reached this point ages ago. I do love you, Tim, and I'm thrilled to have a real boyfriend at last. No, you're more than a boyfriend, a fiancé. I felt left behind since Connie got married. Did you know John kept trying to hook me up by arranging foursomes? Tim laughed. Did he? And you didn't like his friends? I wanted to make my own choice. We could go out for a walk tonight, couldn't we? Think about ourselves and not all the other things we're expected to be doing. Tim, no, I'm sorry, I really can't. There's so much to be done before Dad leaves. Uncle Bob is coming round to take his car away. He's giving it to him. No, did I not tell you? He's giving it to me. Uncle Bob is going to teach me to drive it. Heavens, how could you forget that? I'd be thinking of nothing else. It's a lovely car, too. Getting things straight between you and me was more important. I've been hankering for that for a long time, too. Carrie, here's your stop. Nearly missed it, she laughed as she got to her feet. I was delighted when Dad's problems were settled, but I'm totally thrilled that we've sorted ourselves out, too. See you tomorrow. She dropped a kiss on his forehead and skipped down the tram. When she let herself into the house, the first thing she saw was the mountain of luggage building up in the hall. Maud came to the living room door. "She's home, Archie," she called. "Hello, love. Come in and have a glass of sherry," he said. Uncle Bob and Auntie Dilys were already there, and so was Gladys, dressed from head to foot in black, as she usually was these days. Something of a party atmosphere was already building up. Archie had provided 2 ducks for the feast, and Prue had roasted them to perfection. "Maud and I have spent the afternoon round at Connie's place," he told Carrie. "We went to say goodbye to her and the baby." "She's absolutely gorgeous," Maud said. "I expect she'll be a demanding child before I see her again, but I'm inviting all of you to come out and see me." Gladys had made the dessert, a confection of sponge cake, fruit and cream, but Maud had to carry it in from the kitchen because Gladys couldn't manage without a stick now, and the heavy bowl needed 2 hands. As she was dishing it up, Archie decided it was the moment to open the champagne. He raised his glass to Carrie. "I can't thank you enough," he said. "You have been wonderful. You made everything turn out right for me." Carrie took a deep breath. "Everything has turned out right for me too," she said with a beaming smile. "Today Tim asked me to marry him, and I said yes." "Congratulations!" Maud whooped, and the rest of the family joined in. Archie was brimming with delight. "That gives me a marvellous excuse to come back for another wedding." "I'm afraid it'll have to wait for a few years," Carrie said. "We all know that," Prue said with her usual sniff. "Tim hasn't exactly rushed to ask you, has he?" It was quite late when Bob stood up and said, "I'm afraid I have to break this party up. It's high time we workers were in bed. Good night, Carrie. I'll come round to take you for another lesson on Sunday." He kissed Maud. "Lucky you. I wish I was coming with you." "Goodbye, Archie." The brothers shook hands. "Don't stay away so long this time." "You and Dilys must come out for a holiday and see me." "We might keep you to that," Bob said. They all went outside to watch Bob and Dilys drive off. "I really feel I'm on my way now he's taken my car," Archie said. Gladys kissed Maud and hugged Archie goodbye, and Prue saw her into her own house and upstairs to her bedroom. Carrie couldn't get to sleep. She felt high on excitement, and it took her some time to calm down. It took the others a while to settle down too. She could hear them whispering and walking round until quite late. Morning came all too soon. Everybody was out of bed at once and wanted to use the bathroom at the same moment. Breakfast was later than usual and seemed chaotic. Prue had hard-boiled the eggs, and Maud said she couldn't possibly eat hers. Carrie was fraught because she had to get off to work, and at the last moment realised her lunchtime sandwiches had been forgotten. She pushed Maud's egg and a few Ryvita into a paper bag. Prue, all apologies, found her some triangles of cheese, and her father scooped up a handful of the chocolates they hadn't eaten last night and dropped them into her pocket. She was nearly in tears as she hugged Maud goodbye, and they overflowed as she gave her dad a final hug. He said, "I'm so glad you're happy too." She ran to catch her usual tram, and when it came, she could see that Tim had saved a seat for her. "Oh, bit of a rush this morning," she said. He stood up to let her sit near the window, and she collapsed on the seat and closed her eyes for a moment to calm down and get her breath back. As soon as she was settled, Tim took a box from his pocket and flicked up the lid. "Oh!" she gasped as she saw the 3-stone diamond ring. "An engagement ring after all?" Yes. This was my grandmother's, my mother's mother. I hope you like it. Oh, it's absolutely gorgeous, Carrie breathed. I love it. You don't mind that it's this or nothing? That it isn't new? Of course not. The fact that it's come down through your family makes it extra special. He took it out of the box and slid it onto her finger. Oh, I'm thrilled. Thank you. And thank you, Mother, too. He kissed her. She wanted you to have it. She told me she'd hidden it so that my father couldn't sell it. Carrie admired it on her hand, turning it slowly to see it flash with fire. It's going to shock Robbie Wilson that I've succeeded where he failed. Tim dropped a butterfly kiss against her cheek. He needs taking down a peg or two, Carrie smiled. But I doubt he ever thought of marrying me. Tim, on second thoughts, do you think we should just go in and tell everybody in the office? Oh dear, no. It might be more diplomatic if I told Uncle Jeremy first. Well, Len at least. It wouldn't help if he heard it first from Robbie Wilson. Carrie slid the ring off her finger and put it back in its leather case and then safely into her handbag. They have funny ideas about marriage, and this clearly shows our intention. How is it better be a secret engagement for the time being? Her smile grew broader. Still, it's lovely to have this magnificent ring straight away, even if it isn't politic to wear it. Chapter 32. Having Tim's ring and knowing he loved her changed Carrie's mood, even though they couldn't make it public knowledge just yet. She felt up on cloud 9, and being so happy filled her with energy. Tim's family invited her and Prue to a celebratory meal in a new restaurant, and Prue said, "They seem pleasant enough people, and I really like Tim's mother." Carrie missed her father and found it much quieter at home without Maud. Bob continued to give her driving lessons, and soon she began to feel that she was getting the hang of it. He made her drive through the busy city streets after that, and finally he arranged for her to sit the test. Maud had promised Carrie she would write to her, and in her first letter she told her that both she and Archie had enjoyed the voyage out. She was loving South Africa, but Archie had been upset to find that his Fred, Rod Reinhardt, had sold his house and his business and left without leaving any forwarding address. None of his many friends seemed to know where he'd gone. Soon her letters were filled with glowing accounts of the social life in Johannesburg and of how much she was enjoying the sun. She said that both she and Archie were bursting with good health in the better climate. "I'm sure she's finding it very exciting," Prue said disdainfully. "That's her sort of thing." Now that there were just the two of them, Prue continued to keep house as she always had, while Carrie studied hard. Within months, Archie was writing to say that Maud had an admirer. "I introduced her to Tom Bennett, my boss at Gordon and Mayle, who's about to retire. He's a few years younger than Maud and has been a widower for 5 years. From the moment they met, they got on like a house on fire. Maud is very happy. She's looking younger than she used to and says she's having a marvellous time." "I suppose age hardly matters at her time of life," Prue commented, "though I wouldn't want to marry a man who was younger than me. I've had to bring up and discipline too many younger brothers. I know how tiresome men can be." Carrie arrived home one evening to find Prue quite agitated. "I've had 2 letters today," she sniffed. "This one's from Maud telling us she's getting married. I hope she knows what she's doing. She's nearly 61, for goodness sake, and should have more sense. Ridiculous to think of it at her age. She hardly knows this man." "Dad knows him," Carrie pointed out. "He likes him, thinks highly of him. Read what she says." Prue held up the letter and pointed out the paragraph. "I'm too old for a fancy church wedding with white gown and orange blossom. It's going to be a quiet affair, very informal, just to make it legal for us to set up home together. Tom is talking about moving down to the coast once he retires. I'm afraid you won't approve, but that's the way we want it." "You must be pleased," Carrie said, sitting down on the sofa to change into her slippers. "It'll be a new way of life for her, a completely fresh start." Prue sniffed again. "And there's this one from your father, inviting me to go out for the wedding." She flung both letters onto Carrie's lap. "You'd better read them." "You will go, won't you?" "It hardly sounds worth the trouble if it's not to be a church wedding. They won't really be married." "Nonsense, Prue, of course they will." Carrie read the letter from her father. "Come out for the wedding and have a decent holiday. You deserve it. I'll pay your fare and put you up. I've persuaded Bob and Dilys to come, so you'll have company on the journey out. Bob will take care of things." "You must go," Carrie insisted. "You can't miss a chance like this." "But you're not going, are you? He says he'll do the same for you if you want to." "He knows I can't go now, but I will as soon as I'm qualified. It would take a month to get to Cape Town and back, and then there's the long rail journey up to Johannesburg. If I'm going that far, I want to stay for a while and enjoy it." There was regret in Prue's voice. "Maud will never come home again. You realise that?" "All the more reason for you to go out for her wedding," Carrie retorted. Eventually Prue agreed to take up Archie's offer, though she said in doom-laden tones, "It's against my better judgment." Gladys said, "Of course you must go, though I'm going to miss you terribly. I expect you will too, Carrie." "I will. I'm so used to having Prue and Maud in the house, I'll feel lonely on my own." "I have a key to this place. I'll pop in and light a fire half an hour before you come home from work, get it going for you and give the place time to warm up." "That's very kind of you, Gladys." The first night Prue was away, Gladys had a cottage pie ready to dish up when Carrie got home, and she ate a more than generous helping. Gladys went on to make a hot meal for her every evening. "This is kindness beyond the call of duty," Carrie told her. "I'm more than grateful." "I know Prue did this for you, and you must be tired after working all day." "But I'm taking up all your time, and now I'm taking up even more sitting here talking to you." "I'm glad of your company," Gladys said. "And it gives me something to do. The place is very quiet without Prue." Prue wrote giving all the details of Maud's wedding, though her disapproval was obvious. She stayed in Johannesburg for 3 months, and later letters said she couldn't settle, it was too hot, and she didn't like swimming pools. Archie kept a house full of servants, so there was nothing for her to do, and she was bored. She wanted to come home to her own house and her friends. Chapter 33. Prue settled quickly back into her old life. Carrie passed her driving test and took Prue and Gladys for little outings at the weekends. She drove Tim to the office, and when required, she ferried her audit team to wherever they were working. That earned her kudos from everybody. Tim laughed and told her that her status had gone up, and by association, so had his. She was spending more and more time with Tim, and although she felt content with what she had, she still wanted what her twin had achieved. Connie told her she was very happy and that marriage had given her everything she'd ever wanted. Within 2 years, Amelia had become an engaging toddler, and she had a baby brother. Carrie longed to be married, although she knew it was hardly possible. "It's what I want too," Tim said. "I want to feel settled with you." "But I also want to finish my time as an articled clerk and sit that exam," Carrie reminded him. "I don't want to be thrown out at this stage." "Of course you don't." "And I want to go on working after I'm married," she sighed. "But none of us knows if that'll be possible. We must both buckle down and wait. After all, that's what we all agreed to do before we started." In the summer of 1938, Tim qualified as a chartered accountant. "Now I'm earning a salary," he said. "I'm getting impatient. I feel we've waited long enough to get married." To hear him say things like that sent a thrill rippling down Carrie's spine. But I still have another year to wait, and there are any number of reasons to put it off even longer than that. Yes, Mum's health is failing and she can't live on her own. I couldn't possibly leave her. Jane Redwood was now confined to a wheelchair. There is one thing we might do, Tim said. Would you be willing to come and live with us? It isn't much of a prospect for a bride-to-be, I'm afraid. Not only would you be taking me on, but also an invalid mother-in-law. That wouldn't worry me, Carrie laughed. Tim had been taking her home more and more often, and she'd grown fond of Jane Redwood and had been doing more to help her. Prue baked cakes for her regularly and had invited her several times to high tea on a Sunday evening. Are you sure? Tim was frowning. Marrying into my family seems a lot to ask of you. I feel I'd be unloading my responsibilities on you. You can't shrug off your responsibilities, and I want to share your life. So, yes, I'm quite sure. I'll be happy to share everything. Carrie felt his arms go round her in a loving hug. You're 1 in a million, he whispered. He explained his plan. Uncle Jeremy is concerned about Mum too. He and Aunt Enid have had to give more and more help. They know exactly how I'm placed. What if I can get him to agree to us being married? He knows what a help it would be if I had a wife, and he likes you. We'll see him together. Or perhaps talk to Len first, Carrie suggested. I'm articled to him, so it's his problem too. The next morning they went to Len's office together, and Tim said, Carrie and I have been engaged for 2 years, and we feel we've waited long enough. We want to get married. You know that's against the rules, Len replied. It would set a precedent for the business. Not if we kept it quiet and only our families knew, Tim said. I don't wear my engagement ring in the office, Carrie pointed out. It isn't public knowledge that we're engaged. You know how Mum is. The family helps her a lot, but Carrie does too, in practical ways. Wouldn't it be a good thing if she moved in and lived with us? Mum isn't going to get any better. Carrie added, But after all this training you've given me, I want to have a career. That isn't usually possible for a married woman, so I'd need my marriage to be kept hidden anyway. Len said, I don't see how we could arrange that. An engagement is one thing, marriage is another. My sister did it, Carrie said. She was married to John Bradford before he qualified, and she carried on working for the council. They kept it quiet. You didn't know, did you? No. Len sank back in his chair in thought. And there's this growing fear of a coming war. That will change everything, and women will be needed in the workforce, Tim said. I'm not unsympathetic, Len said. I'll put it to Father and see what he thinks. Carrie and Tim left his office in jubilant anticipation, and later that day Uncle Jeremy sent for them. Caroline, he said, you know full well that it's national policy for a professional firm like ours not to employ married women. Yet you're asking me as a director to collude with you to do so. I'm afraid I am, sir, Carrie admitted. She was quaking in her shoes. It isn't fair that because I'm a woman I can't— Nothing is fair in this world, he said. But in your case, there are advantages for Tim and his mother. Though I feel I should point out that, like our male clerks, you agreed not to marry until you'd qualified. I did, she said. But nobody wanted to marry me then. He smiled. You fitted in well and been an asset to the business. An asset to the family, too. And a huge support to me and Mum, Tim added. What does your mother think about this, Timothy? Have you discussed it with her? No, I wanted to have your opinion first, though she has said she'd like to see me settled before— Well, you know. Yes, poor Jane. I'm afraid she's suffered more than most, and I have to consider her best interests in this. Well, Caroline, I'd be sorry to lose your services here. So I agree to you and Tim being married, but only on condition that nobody except family members know about it. Not even the Athertons. You must be very careful about that." "We will, Uncle," Tim said. "We'll be very careful. Thank you." "Then I give you my blessing and my best wishes for your future." Carrie's head was in a joyous whirl, and she could see Tim felt the same. But they carried on in the office as though nothing momentous had happened. That evening, Tim got off the tram with her so they could tell Aunt Prue together. Her mouth opened in surprise. "Married now? A secret wedding?" "Just as soon as it can be arranged," Tim said. "I want it to be like Connie's wedding," Carrie said. "We'll have it in your church, and afterwards hold the reception here. We'll only invite our 2 families." "Yes, but, Tim, won't your family want to invite their friends? Have something grander? A big wedding breakfast in a large hotel?" "No, what they really want is for us to keep it quiet, so that their friends and the staff in the business don't know. We'll arrange to be married on a weekday. There'll be no printed invitations, and a reception here would be ideal." "I shall enjoy arranging it all," Prue smiled. "Though I hope there'll be no burst water tank this time." Carrie wrote to her father immediately to tell him of her plans, and he replied saying, "I came home to give Connie away, and I'm going to do the same for you. Maud and her husband will be coming too." When she told her twin sister, Connie hugged her in delight. "When is it to be? I'm almost as excited as if I were getting married again." "At 11 o'clock on the Tuesday morning after the August bank holiday. Tim and I are going to take the rest of that week off. Uncle Jeremy is paying for 5 nights in a hotel in Southport as a wedding present. I want to be your matron of honour. Connie, it's not going to be a dress-up wedding. I've seen a pretty dress in bunnies that I like, but I can't make up my mind about the colour. They have it in green or lavender." "No," Connie wailed. "You must be a proper bride and have a white gown. It'll be the only chance you'll get." "Why don't you borrow mine? It's only been worn the once." She suppressed a giggle. "I haven't looked at it for years, but I packed it away carefully." "I'll start by baking the cake," Prue said, "and I'll ask Gladys if she'll ice it. Now, help me draw up the menu for the wedding breakfast." Carrie knew exactly what she'd want to make. Prue laid out similar grand buffets for all her family parties, but this time she was unaccountably nervous. "I hardly know Tim's family," she said, "apart from his mother. We've only ever met the once at that restaurant." "They're very easy to get on with," Carrie said, "and his mother is thrilled. She's very frail now, and the doctor doesn't give her much longer. I'll be able to help if I go to live with them. All his family are in favour of us getting married." "I'm not surprised, but it hardly seems the best start for your life together," Prue said. "I hope he's worth it." "He is, Prue, and I want you to know that we look after you if the need arises." "Oh, it won't," she said. "I'll always be able to look after myself." But Carrie could see that she was moved. One Sunday morning, Tim came round to help her distemper the yard walls, and at lunchtime the next day they went to the market and bought some plants that were already in bloom to put in the tubs. They were very busy over the following days, making cakes and trifles, made even busier when their visitors arrived from Johannesburg. Carrie had moved out of her bedroom so that Maud and her husband could use the twin beds. She would have gone to the camp bed in the box room, but Prue, stern as ever, put her foot down. "You're the bride. Everything must revolve round you. It won't hurt your dad to spend his first few nights on the camp bed. He can move to Maud's old room once you're gone." Carrie drove Prue down to Lime Street Station to meet them. She could see her father waving at a window as the train came into the station. He had the door open in moments, leaving Maud to find a porter for their luggage. It was 2 years since Carrie had seen him, and he looked tanned and healthy and carefree. She felt his arms scoop her into a bear hug. Maud seemed younger than she had, and her clothes were really smart. I knew your turn would come, she whispered to Carrie. You haven't had to wait as long as I did. This is Tom, my husband. He put out his hand to shake hers. Carrie liked the look of him. On the morning of the wedding, the more distant members of the family gathered at the house. Everybody was talking about the leaking water tank that had flooded the dining room on Connie's big day. Bob now had a car of his own, and he and George were going to ferry people to the church, just as they had for Connie. She and John came round early, bringing their babies and enough flowers to decorate every room in the house. "Come on, let's get you into that wedding gown," she said. She'd had it dry cleaned and pressed before bringing it round, and Carrie had tried it on and decided she liked the heavy ivory silk, the small stand-up collar and long sleeves. The princess style with a wide skirt fitted her perfectly. It was a very traditional wedding gown. Carrie was used to putting her hair up now, and today she'd arranged it in a large bun on top of her head. She'd chosen a plain silver band to hold the veil in place. "Oh, you look the perfect bride," Connie breathed. "Stylish, yet demure, and very romantic." Her father said, "I've ordered plenty of champagne. We aren't going to rely on Prue this time. She's good at catering for the food, but she hopelessly underestimates how much guests will drink. She thinks a glass of sherry is all the ladies could possibly want. I'm going to open a bottle now." Carrie heard the cork come out with a resounding bang. "You need just one glassful before you walk down that aisle," he told her. She sipped it while bubbles danced up from the glass. The last batch of guests caused a flurry as they left for the church, and now only Dad and Connie were left with her. "I'll never be able to thank you enough for what you did for me," her father told her. "You're a daughter in a million." During the short car ride to church, Connie kept giving her hand a comforting squeeze. Then as the organ soared, she clung to Dad, and he walked her up the aisle. This time, it was all for her. The man she loved was waiting at the altar with his cousin Leonard, who was acting as his best man. Tim turned as she approached and gave her the slow half-smile she knew so well. She could see the love in his eyes, but suddenly everything went misty and there was a lump in her throat. She heard the groom's strong, firm voice saying, "I, Timothy, take thee, Caroline, to my wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better for worse, for richer for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death us do part." And Carrie knew that now she too had everything she'd ever wanted in life. You have been listening to Liverpool Gems. It was written by Anne Baker and read by Anne Dover. Other recordings by Anne Baker include Daughters of the Mersey, A Liverpool Legacy, Love is Blind, and Wartime Girls. This has been a Soundings Audiobooks presentation. If you've enjoyed this production, please write to us at Isis House, Kings Drive, Whitley Bay, Tyne and Wear, NE26 2JT, or call 0191 253 4155, or visit our website www.isis-publishing.co.uk, and you'll be sent a full list of our recordings.